Welcome back, everybody, from 937 The Ticket. We're back here live for another episode of Niko at Night podcast. And to my right here, I have the amazing Genesis Gibson. Genesis is a gymnastics athlete here at the University of Nebraska. She is from Texas. She currently is studying criminal justice to become a lawyer one day. And currently here at the University of Nebraska, she competes on the bars, but then she also trains beam as well. Some of her accomplishments, she has competed for Ecuador back in, I think, a year or two ago. And, she has had a very interesting career here at the University of Nebraska, to say the least. She's been through a lot of things, and she's still persevering to this day, has a lot of different things going on from her day-to-day life, and I'm excited for you guys to get to know her. So, Genesis, how are you feeling about being on the podcast today?
I'm really excited. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, let's go ahead and start this podcast off. The way I like to start every podcast off is asking, why did you come to the University of Nebraska?
The coaching staff, 100%. I think that they just made me feel welcomed, and they made me feel like they had faith in me, and that's something that I didn't feel like I had. I was not a strong recruit. So just for Heather to have that faith in me that I could achieve my goals that I had when I was a little girl, that meant more than anything to me.
Right. Yeah, that is big. A coach that really believes in you, and especially being the fact that you weren't a strong recruit, because I wasn't one either. When I was coming to the University of Nebraska, I wasn't a strong recruit, and had a coach that really believes in me. And so I remember before the podcast we were mentioning that you were actually committed somewhere else pretty late. You were planning on going to that school, and then you ended up committing and making the switch. So go ahead and tell the people that story.
Yeah. So I actually did cheer in high school, and because I actually stopped gymnastics for a while because my back was just really bad, and so I did cheer in high school, and then I was just thinking about what was next for me, and I didn't know if I could do college gymnastics. I didn't think I was good enough, and I always knew that cheer I was good at because of gymnastics, so I was like, okay, well, that's another route that I could take. I applied at Abilene Christian University, and I tried out for the team. I made the team. And then right after that is when I actually started getting in contact with Heather, and I was like, okay, maybe this could actually be a thing. I could go to Nebraska. That's crazy. I ended up committing with Nebraska, and then I had to call up the ACU cheer coach, and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I actually can't be on the team. I'm committing somewhere else, and that's kind of how that happened.
Man, that is a very difficult decision to have to switch last minute like that. And I think the exact date you said was June 18th.
June 8th. Yeah, I committed 2 months before I came to Nebraska. So it was super late notice. But yeah, I was just on a whim. I was like, okay, I guess here we go. So I was kind of like a trial run.
Right.
So they weren't completely sure about me, and I wasn't sure of myself either. But, made it work. So
hey, to have the talent like that, because you did mention that you did cheer all throughout high school, and then you ended up making a switch to 1 year.
Senior year, right?
Your senior year, and she stopped that whole entire time, committed to do cheer, and the last minute it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to a Power 5 Big Ten school.
Back to gymnastics, I guess.
Yeah, I can choose to go back to gymnastics real quick. Yeah. And so, okay, let's jump into, when you got to the University of Nebraska. And so COVID was still alive and well back, early in 2021. And she has a very interesting story about her college debut. Actually, she ended up catching COVID literally, I think, a week before, and having to compete because everyone else was sick or there wasn't enough girls. Go ahead and tell that story.
Yeah, for sure. I ended up getting COVID in December, and I was quarantined in a hotel for 9 days. No training, nothing, just pretty much on bed rest in a hotel for literally longer than a week. We had a competition really soon after that. I had about a week to prepare after I got out of quarantine, and I was not hitting my routines. I was like, my endurance is rough right now. I am not making my routines, and I know myself. I train how I compete. Pressure usually doesn't really get to me. So whenever I couldn't make my routine in practice, I'm like, it's not happening in the meet. That's not happening. So I went to my coach. I was like, you need to put someone else in. He was like, you have to go in because we have 6 girls who have a bar routine. We got to put in 6 people in a meet. So you're going up. And I was like, oh, okay, great, wonderful. I didn't make it. I fell on a pirouette, if you know what that is. I don't know if whoever's watching. It's literally you switch your hand and you go over the bar like that. It's after one of my releases, and it's the easiest skill in my routine, and I fell on it. So that's how that went. But I made every routine after that. After that meet, the practices after that were really good and ended up doing well the rest of the season. So, yeah.
So with COVID being a factor that, and that being, your first ever collegiate Big Ten, just meet ends up falling on one of the easiest routines, which is unfortunate. And then, you get the hang of things. And then a little bit after that too. So if you guys don't know, I had a stress fracture in my left leg. And so I go to the gymnastics room to get to I think it was the orthopedics doctor. So I'm in there. He's telling me, yeah, bro, you're out for 4 or 5 months. You're done. Get out of here. Get some crutches, like get an X-ray, get an MRI, but you're done. And then to my left, I see her coach carrying her, like literally like cradling her, bringing her in. And she's like, her leg's gone. And her boyfriend and her coach are just there. She puts her on the table because, like, that was before the doctor told me all this. And I'm just watching her situation go down. And then her coach is like, all right, doc, tell me, can she compete tomorrow? He's like, bro, no, her leg's like sideways. Ended up tearing her MCL. Just absolutely. I was like looking at her leg like, that don't look right. And like, she can't even walk. And he's like, so tell me, doc, how long we thinking? He's like, what do you mean how long we're thinking? So tell your perspective of that, because that was mine. That was mine.
No, it's actually funny how I got hurt. So basically my grip that I used like this really weird brand that they used at my old gym. And basically the buckle, what happened was the hole like went through the other end of the buckle. I don't know if that makes sense. It's hard to explain. Basically my whole grip came off in the middle of while I was doing a dismount on bars, and I went flying. And I ended up landing in a froggy position so hard on my knees. I pretty much sprained both of my knees, but it was mostly my left MCL area. And I was out the rest of the season that year. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how that happened.
Jeez. So ends up, hitting a little froggy position, busting both of her knees, gets out for the rest of the season. And unfortunately, she can't register because she already competed in too many competitions. And so go ahead. That was actually going to lead me into my next point. I was going to ask you, what's kind of been the hardest situation you've been in here at the University of Nebraska, and how have you gotten over it?
Ooh. Okay, yeah. I think for me, it was like the transition of the gymnastics culture. Because in club, it's very individualized and it's very, I don't know how to describe it. It's not the team atmosphere. It's like, all right, you're on your own, kid, and do what you can do. Hopefully you get recruited. Yeah. But here it's like you're applauding every single one of your teammates' successes because it's also your success. And that's what you learn here at Nebraska and being on a team. Whenever someone else goes up and they stick that landing, that's also your stick because it's a team effort. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to get us to beat the other opponent.
Right. Yeah. That's a great answer. I mean, there's so many people from so many different, walks of life. I mean, where you come from in your gym might be different from where somebody else came from. And so I've actually interviewed a lot of other gymnastics athletes, and they all say the same thing. They're like, coming here was a literal culture shock. I mean, how you guys, do everything as a team, how team-oriented you guys are. I mean, it's a big shock. And like, my track team, I mean, we're deep. We're like 150 people deep versus you guys. What are you guys, 18, 20 people?
Yeah, 22.
22 people. So it's very different. And so getting into that, each person being very different. Can you talk about the transition of, the type of person that you've become, from freshman year up until now, kind of the things you've learned, maybe, a change in morals, a change in who you hang around with. I know I've changed personally. I was a lot more different than I was my freshman year, but if you can tell the people and recognize, how have you changed?
Yeah. I think that I've seen myself grow as a leader in the gym. I know my freshman year, I was just trying to survive, I feel like. I was just trying to take it day by day. And I mean, that's all you can do. I mean, right now I'm trying to take it day by day. But being in the position that I'm in, I can at least, help the freshmen or sophomores, people behind me, and be like, hey, I was once in that situation too. And I like to pull them with me and be like, hey, I'll help you out. Like, let's do this together. I feel like my freshman year, I didn't really have that. And so just growing into someone that I wish I had my freshman year is something that's been really big for me, I guess. Yeah, I don't really have much to add on that.
No, that's powerful. I completely understand that.
Just to, have that person to, if you're just having a hard time, come with me. We'll have a hard time together, instead of seeing someone struggle alone. So
you've become the person that you wish you had your freshman year.
Yes, that was huge for me. Yeah, being a leader in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing to recognize. I almost feel like I had that for my group, at least in the 800. There was nobody else around like that was pushing me like that was leading me. And so like I told myself when I'm like this age, I'm going to do the same thing. And it's awesome for you in your situation. We almost have similar situations. I mean, like I told you, we were in the same exact, spot in the same exact day, same exact injury, or like, yours a little bit worse than mine. I had a fracture. You had a torn MCL.
We were probably out around the same time.
Yeah, well, you're like 4 months, right?
Well, it was more like half a year, I feel like.
God.
To like actually get back to where I was,
Yeah.
it was rough. But
Yeah, we've both been through it. I mean, college, like I said, some people have success. Some people get, wake up. Some people, get a reality check. I mean, for me, it was definitely like, dang, like track isn't everything. And for her, the same thing.
Yeah.
Switching things up a little bit. So going into your personal life, what inspired you to want to study law, criminal justice? Can you go ahead and talk about that realm? Do you know any lawyers? What was the drive to your passion?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. So my mom was in the military, and she didn't tell me what she studied until I actually made my decision of what I was going to major in.
In high school?
Yeah, like out of high school, like all my college applications, like I was like, I want criminal justice. And I think what really stemmed that was my forensics class that I took in high school. I was like, I love this. So I was like, I'm going to do that. But my mom was like, I studied criminal justice in the military. Really? Yeah. And I was like, this has to be like in our blood or something. I don't know. But yeah, I've had family that has been involved in the law department. So I think that's what really inspired me to actually get started with it. Of course, we love a job that serves the money. Obviously. We love that. But also it's just about helping those people that really need it. I'm just a person who when I see someone who needs help, like I'm that first person to try to help them. I just feel like it's kind of like my calling in life to be that person for somebody. So whether that means doing that in a court, defending someone, maybe they're a drug addict, helping them get that rehabilitation they need, just for an example. So.
Right. And so far in your career studying this, I mean, is it everything that you thought it'd be? I mean, I know another lawyer actually, and he is always studying 24/7. He's on a very strict regimen, very disciplined. So I mean, you gotta be an absolute book fanatic. You got to be able to study a lot. You got to be able to read people. So can you tell the people what it's been like? Because I only see it from the outside perspective. What is it like living it?
Yeah. So I'm actually a B-Law minor. My major is criminal justice, but those have been the hardest classes, 100%. I am currently in civil and criminal litigation, and it is ran like a law class. You get cold called. So you better get, you have to make sure you do the readings. You have to make sure you understand what you're reading and you know the terms that applies to the cases you're reading. So every time you go into class, you need to be prepared knowing you could get cold called and you don't want to embarrass yourself. Right. That is probably the worst thing ever. So it gives me anxiety sometimes, but I just have to keep reminding myself what the bigger picture is, what my goals are, making it in law school, and yeah, that's honestly what I get to keep my mind on. So.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's got to give you like a sense of power too. I mean, you're doing what so little people have done before. I mean, to be studying law, to be into criminal justice like this, and also be a full-time Division I athlete on top of that. I mean, you're juggling a lot. I mean, you have so many different hats that you're putting on each and every single day. And so I want to kind of get to where that came from. I mean, from Texas, you did mention that we go to the second biggest high school in all of Texas. They're building, I think, the number one biggest high school Texas football stadium. And if you know Texas for anything, that's all they're known for is that's one of the biggest things. Everything's bigger in Texas, and especially high school football, but not even just high school football. I mean, we were talking about before this podcast her other gymnastics friends, and she was mentioning all these big name schools that they go to, Florida, Alabama. She was mentioning that a few of her friends are actually already qualified for the Olympics. And so just go ahead and tell me, what was the Texas life like? Do you think it prepared you for college, and do you plan to move there after?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. One, I would totally move back. I love Texas so much. The heat? Yes, I love the heat. So the Nebraska cold here is rough on me. It's definitely rough. But yeah, whenever I grew up at Woga, my club gym, and it absolutely prepared me for everything that was going to be thrown at me with Nebraska. And I think the time management skills that I acquired whenever I was there completely helped me transition. My schedule, it was very, very structured, and that's how it also is here now, so that's what's also helped. But my schedule was 7:30 to 11:30 I had practice. 11:30 to 4 I had school upstairs in the same facility with 2 private teachers. And then I went back downstairs, 4 to 7, practice again. And that's when I could go home. So I was living pretty much a full-time job for 7 years of my life. For 7 years. And I was just a kid. I was really just a kid. And so, you know, a part of me, I like kind of lost that childhood aspect to it. But I also learned such valuable lessons and skills at such a young age. And that's what has really helped me thrive here in Nebraska.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, you've been at it for so long. I mean, as you mentioned before, 7 years, you're coming to college, and you've been through a lot of things. I mean, there's been so much that's been put on your mental, put on the soul, put on the, you know, the body, the stresses. And a lot of people too, I mean, they come here and they have aspirations to go pro. And as I was, you know, talking to you, you said to say like, you know, once that, you know, my 4th year is done, I'm just ready to start my career. I'm ready to start my goals. I mean, how does it feel to, you know, like know that the next chapter of your life is coming? I mean, it was a super big jump from 8th grade to freshman year. You're finally in high school, and you get to you go all throughout high school to get to college, and now you're finally here. I mean, how are you feeling about that next chapter?
Yeah, I mean, coming from high school to here was a huge jump for me. I've noticed significant changes even just since I walked through the doors here. But thinking about the next chapter, I'm just excited about it. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and the way things unfold, they happen for a purpose, whether that's for you or for someone else. So I'm ready to see what life has in store for me, and I know it's all good things. So I'm just ready to see it, honestly. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. And so, Genesis, you've been killing this podcast, and, you know, I want you to go ahead and tell, you know, anybody that wants to be in your position. I mean, you're absolutely rocking it right now. Like I said, you're doing so many good things when it comes to, you know, your morals or just your form. I mean, you did say that all you want to do is, you know, help the other person, whether that's physically, whether that's, you know, in a courtroom, whether it's with rehabilitation. You're also inspiring a bunch of people too, especially, you know, the girls that want to be in your position here at the University of Nebraska, being in, you know, gymnastics. What advice would you have for any of those people that are watching right now, you know, who need that little boost, or who even want to get to your position? Maybe there's somebody out there who wants to study what you study, or do what you do. Maybe it's the bars, maybe it's the beam. What would you tell them? What advice?
Yeah. Keep knocking on that door. And whenever I mean that, I mean the more you try at something, the door's going to open eventually. So just keep at it. Keep your head down, stay humble, do your work. I know it's hard in the moment, but the prize at the end is so much greater than that. And honestly, just believe in yourself. I feel like that was a huge one when I actually came to Nebraska. Whenever I competed bars, I remember Brian telling me, he was like, I just think you don't believe in yourself, and you need to start believing in yourself. Brian's my bar coach, by the way. And I think like when everyone else started believing in me, like I felt that too. So just be around people who support you and love you. And honestly, just know that things are going to happen for a reason, and just go with the flow. Just take things as they come. That's pretty much all that I could provide out there.
Day by day. And actually, one thing I did not actually cover is, you know, a few weeks back, me and Genesis, we rocked out a Nebraska, Husker Hispanic Heritage Month video together. And so we were practicing and brushing up on our Spanish. And I did want to ask you, since you are half Mexican, do you want to teach your kids Spanish in the future? I know your Spanish is very well. You grew up speaking Spanish a little bit with your family. Is that something that you value on, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to teach my kids Spanish. I hope they end up more fluent than me, because I know like I did lose it a little bit over the years. So I hope to integrate it much better into their lives than it was into mine.
Hey, you and me both. I'm trying the same exact thing. I definitely did lose it. But Genesis, thank you so much for coming on this podcast, everybody. This was the Niko and I podcast here inside of Memorial Stadium. Stay tuned for a lot more episodes like this. Peace.